Welcome to NovoEDTalks, where we reveal real-world strategies and expert insights from learning and development professionals. In every episode, we chat with practitioners, course designers, learning strategists, and business leads. We hear about their experiences in the learning industry and predictions for the profession and the trends that they're seeing. But before we get started, a little bit about NovoEd. Founded at Stanford's Social Algorithms Lab in 2012, NovoEd is a people-centric, capability-building platform that combines social and collaborative learning to drive performance readiness at scale. Through cohort-based experiences centered around human interaction, NovoEd taps into collective wisdom, placing each learner at the center of perspective, application, and expertise. Large enterprises such as 3M, GE, Marriott International, and Nestle partner with NovoEd to accelerate their critical initiatives, reconnect teams, and achieve rapid alignment through learning that is felt, experienced, and swiftly transformed into impact. Now, let's meet our guest for today's episode.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the NovoEDTalks podcast, a space for training trailblazers to get real. My name is Melissa Fisk, and I'm the producer of the NovoEDTalks podcast. And today I am joined by Andrea Mead, who is a passionate and results-oriented leader with over 15 years of experience in sales and business development. She is currently the Senior Manager of Learning and Development at Gannett. In this role, she creates, implements, and delivers corporate training, leadership development, and performance management initiatives to support enterprise activities across multiple divisions. Recently, she launched a new program to assist new hire sales executive once they complete onboarding. Over the past 18 months, this program has reduced turnover by 12% and helped new hires reach their goals 35% faster through focused mentoring and coaching. Andrea, it's a pleasure to have you on the NovoEDTalks podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, why don't you start by just kind of introducing yourself, your role, and talking a little bit about your company?
Sure. Yeah. So, again, my name's Andrea Mead. I'm a Senior Learning and Development Manager at Gannett. So Gannett actually is one of the largest media content providers across the United States. So we publish USA Today and then about 250 other local news properties. So if you're getting your news, you're probably getting it from one of our reporters across the country and on many different platforms. So whether it's digital, print, digital, through social media, through, basically any type of platform that you're getting news, we're probably publishing parts of it across the U.S., as I said. So we have an opportunity to be able to scale, small as far as local businesses, along with regional, national, et cetera, across the country, just based on who we are within the United States. We also have properties in the UK, Canada, and Australia. And I support our local sales managers and sales reps who are working with small, medium, large-sized businesses to be able to promote their brand, their business, get them in front of the right audience to be able to grow whatever their goals are, grow their business, whatever the case may be, like I said, across multiple platforms.
Wow, that's incredible. So who are some of your learners and, what exactly are their, challenges that they're facing?
So we have, so basically it's our sales organization. So whether you're new coming into the sales digital media sales, coming out of college, as far as your new sales kind of experience, whether you're a veteran sales rep, we have a lot of people who have been here for a very long time within the sales organization. Any leaders in the organization as far as sales managers that are running sales teams. So those are basically, for the most part, our learners. And across the board, I would say, from an onboarding experience of coming into the organization, we actually just started onboarding. I know it seems like a long time, but 10 years ago, which for a huge company that we are, like not having a formalized onboarding program was kind of, when I came to the organization, I was like, wow, this is weird. We don't have this in place. So when they finally were able to put it in place, the opportunity to actually join the learning and development team from being a sales manager, I was excited to do because I love to dig in and coach and develop people. So we've evolved from onboarding into product. We have a lot of products. So product trainings, all the way through from the sales organization, along with leadership development, from coaching and development and different platforms of leadership opportunities to grow and develop our managers. Yeah. So from kind of foundationally bringing on a new sales rep and or a new manager, and starting to get, so we have a sales process, right? Like we have steps of the sale. I think one of the biggest challenges from a development perspective across the sales organization is really going through the sales process, right? So like taking the time to get to know a customer, understanding their goals and objectives, and being able to put together like a really solid recommendation based on those goals and objectives, tie it back to return on investment, et cetera. One of the things we get stuck into, and I've seen this like in media in general, is we get very much into the new shiny thing that we want to sell. And so like, that's what our focus is. And that tends to be transactional, which isn't helping anybody at the end of the day, except to like try to get like some numbers in basically, right? From a sales perspective. So we're always like from a coaching and developing perspective, trying to foundationally build out long-term understanding, like that we need to kind of be consistent in our cadence as far as like developing out not only our new hire reps, but existing reps and managers from the coaching and development piece. That's been a struggle that I've seen even from being a sales manager here, and like taking everybody kind of down the course of, we need to really understand our customers, their goals, their business, to be able to put together the right program for them that both of us can win with.
Sure, absolutely. That's definitely a tricky thing that we've seen, in sales organizations across the board. I like that you're very, very aware of it. Everyone always loves the new shiny thing and everyone wants to push that, but, it's great that it's, you guys are very aware of that and, putting that into your learning and development where it's like, hey, this might not be the right solution for them.
Exactly.
As the skill sets needed for continued success shift, what strategies does your team use to ensure the workforce remains adaptable and prepared?
So, we can obviously we use Microsoft as our suite. So we've introduced Copilot from kind of a skill-based different way to approach, let's say, our customers. So it's funny because we tend to be very stuck in our ways as an organization. Some of our local properties have been around for over 100 years, 115 years, like actually publishing news, which is kind of insane if you think about it. So the evolution of, kind of people using the same methodology over and over, what the definition of insanity, as they say, right? And the opportunity to introduce some different ways to approach, let's say, whether it's data that you're sharing with a customer or prospecting outreach that you're sharing with a customer, and using some of the tools that we have to be able to assist our sales force to approach maybe something in a new and different way. So that's been really cool for us to. So we use Copilot and being able to like, hey, give me, here's some data sets, give me, a prospecting outreach to reach out to this customer in a different way than maybe the normal same old thing that they've been doing kind of thing. So that's been cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I can see how that would be super beneficial. How does your team assess and address skills gaps so that you're staying agile in this kind of changing workforce?
So based on the different kind of focuses of the team, so we have onboarding, right? And so onboarding is hard because it's like, are we giving you all the baseline skills we can in the right amount of time? So we work with a lot of survey information based on the new hires coming out of onboarding. We get feedback from the managers from the perspective of like, what are we missing gap wise? So there's a lot of conversations from a survey perspective, but not only that, like from a manager perspective, like what do you want to see differently or better that we can do for you? And so we're always changing onboarding based on the feedback that we're getting from that perspective. One of the things that I jumped into, which has been like my favorite part of doing this like learning and development piece, was we noticed that we had a huge gap. So prior to COVID, again, we have a lot of local properties. our rep onboarding's always been virtual, right? So they go through onboarding, they come out of onboarding, and then they're sitting in their local offices with their teams, like being able to chat and get coffee and do all the normal things that we used to do. And then COVID hit, and they go through onboarding, and now they're like sitting in their living room, like starting to do a job, and they're like, I have no idea, like even where to begin to do this, right? Like the whole kind of like concept of it was like a little bit it was a very weird space, right? And truly, I think a lot of managers were thrown into managing virtually and they had no idea what they were doing, right? They had to like figure it
Yeah.
out. So we saw a huge gap there from the perspective of like, how can we help our new hires acclimate quicker, feel more supported, like all the things. So we built out this mentoring kind of like support program that I was working with them on. What was interesting is I created a safe space for them, for the new hires. And so I got a lot of feedback. I was almost like a therapist. I got a lot of feedback on like things that were going really well within terms of managers and teams and things that weren't. And so I saw a lot of themes happening. So he was able to build out like a best practices, like manager toolkit to say, hey, managers, if you have a new hire, if we do these things consistently and well, and I saw this happen, these guys will acclimate quicker and they'll get to goal faster. And we'll lose less of them because obviously turnover within onboarding can be a huge dollar loss, right? As far as bringing somebody on and then losing them right away. So that was a cool thing. And it was measurable, like it was scalable and measurable that I was able to like look at like reducing turnover and helping to get these guys to goal faster, which was pretty cool.
That's awesome. So do you have a way that you kind of like any core KPIs or other ways that you currently measure kind of the effectiveness, either in this example or just of your programs in general?
Yeah, so I would think that like the biggest thing, even though it's a smaller group from the onboarding perspective, we've definitely been able to impact the KPIs from the perspective of reducing turnover and helping them get to goal faster, which overall helps everybody. But along with that, like whenever we do a product training, like we're looking at, okay, if we're rolling out a new product, like where are we over, or, let's say a snapshot in time, if it's over a quarter or over a year, in rolling out a product and being able to see, okay, so what's our increase overall as far as like, hopefully it's going to be incorporated. It's not the shiny thing. It's going to be incorporated with other stuff, but we can also see an increase as far as like those solutions being sold and obviously adding to the revenue overall. So that's another thing. KPIs around leadership development's hard, right? So like, we're really digging in and trying to like have a consistent behavior that we're changing. So there's an over time factor of that. But like we rolled out leadership development last year. So we had a lot of input as far as like, how did the program work? And now we're digging into, okay, we gave you the overarching tools to use from a developmental perspective as leaders. And this year we're digging in with the actual application of coaching and working with them more on a one-on-one basis. So we should have a better understanding of our KPIs based on that.
I love that. I love that. I feel like that's such a smart approach to doing it
Yeah.
We'll check back soon.
Yeah.
Do you have an example of a case study that has been successful that you've like seen through to the end that you could share?
Yeah, I mean, well, yes, let's see. Oh, so many. We've had well, I'll go with like one of my onboarding situations where, I've mentored like a lot of like new hires as far as like their success, but one in particular who I constantly am checking in, or we're constantly checking in with each other. Coming into the organization, he did very well to start, and then ran into, let's say, some situations where he was taking some losses, which can always, as a salesperson, can always like put you into a situation of like, am I going to be able to get out of this? Like, am I going to be able to make any more money? Like just with a commission base and like, so I talked to him a lot during that time, and he was able to kind of sell his way through it to the point where he's observed a lot of things that are going on in his market as a sales rep and was like, I think if we were able to build out like a different way to, let's say, approach this certain market, I think we could make a bigger impact in the marketplace. And so I was like, hey, do me a favor, build me out like, your kind of business plan of what you want to do with this. And I'll like shoot it up to somebody and see if we can maybe potentially start out like looking at your market and having you more involved in this. One of his goals, and that was always my thing too, is like really understanding like where people want to go, both personally and professionally. Because I think as managers, we can do a much better job of tying the two back to each other. So he wants to eventually be in a manager leadership role with the organization. And so I was able to roll his business plan up to some other people within the organization. And they're really looking at, okay, like how can we actually make this executable? So I would say that that's a pretty good case study as far as like just kind of taking somebody all the way through the process of potential, like, hey, I have this idea, how can we execute on it? Which I will say with this organization, we can do a lot of that, which is pretty cool.
That is awesome. And like, what a great place to, work if you're looking to kind of advance your career. That's amazing. You've talked about a couple of different pieces of technology, but what role in general does technology play in your programs, and how do you leverage tools and platforms to kind of enhance overall experiences?
So, as far as learning and development, obviously with the adult learners, we always hear, and a lot of our feedback is like, I don't learn from having, kind of classroom style, like, going through the motions of like going through a deck and stuff like that. So we've really looked at technology from the perspective of like, do we have, building out, let's say, a library of our e-learnings to start as far as, okay, so you need to walk through this, like knowledge checks behind that just to check in on the learning. We do a lot of actual like hands-on, like we'll bring in, and it's not necessarily technology, but from a learning perspective, we're trying to cover all of the different ways that, people really do like to learn. So we'll do a lot of hands-on, like real world scenarios of like role play type situations. We've been looking at the opportunity to bring in, kind of like a role play AI type situation. We're not there yet. Investment wise, you always have to look at everything as far as a balance goes. But so we're still doing kind of the old fashioned role play situations with one-on-one people, but eventually if it can save time and we can get like kind of an automatic, because everybody that gives feedback isn't awesome at giving feedback, unfortunately. So, we're looking at potentially could we bring in some AI role play simulators to be able to give people like automatic feedback and maybe more honest. I'm not sure. We'll see. We have we use Salesforce as our CRM. So we are starting to work within a space of not just recording calls, but being able to go back and look at like, what are we missing from a coaching perspective within these calls, so the managers can dig in a little bit more and really identify where are my opportunities from a sales calls perspective of things that we're missing and things that we can help improve upon, or they're great calls and maybe I can share them with everybody else on the team, right, at the end of the day. So there's some, technology wise, I wish we were kind of like more fluid with everything, but we're kind of like putting things together that will make sense. As we, kind of like, as I mentioned, like we're digging and coaching with our managers more one-on-one, and we have some things that are going to assist us with that as we move forward within the course of 2025 and hopefully into 2026.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it can be tough where it's like when there's so many tools out there and so many different tech things that you can use, and you need to keep like the human experience at the center of that, so it's definitely a balancing act. I feel like that comes up a lot on this podcast. If you're looking at kind of learning and development and mentoring programs over the past 5 years, what are some of the key takeaways you've seen?
And it's always like a scalability problem as far as like being able to dig in more on the like mentoring. Yes, can we dig in more on the one-on-one? But then, and only from what I've seen kind of like within my own experience, is how do we take what we're learning from like maybe a group or one-on-one kind of, mentoring coaching piece and apply it, on a bigger scale to the organization as far as like trends that we're seeing. And I would say that that would be like the biggest thing is, can we pull out information that we're seeing kind of in the field from a mentoring perspective or coaching perspective, and being able to, like, across the country, right? Like seeing consistent things across the country and be able to make it applicable as a larger learning opportunity for the sales organization.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's something that a lot of people are struggling with. We're really hearing more and more people talk about just mentoring programs in general and like the importance of them and how, and just exactly what you said, like how to scale them. Because I think, especially with like a changing workforce dynamic where some people are remote in these situations and still really, maybe more so than ever, kind of need a mentor to help like navigate these changing times. Like how do we do that? So
Yeah.
I think that's very, very on point there. On the flip side of that question, as you're looking to the next 5 years, what are you seeing for like different technologies or programs that will enhance kind of these different L&D mentoring coaching programs?
Yeah, I think, I mean, and I know, as I'm listening to your podcast, like AI is like huge. And honestly, I think one of the things with that too is just really like understanding how, I think and I can only speak for us, but like we're just getting into it, right? And I think the really understanding how to not only tell like our sales force, let's say our managers, like, hey, go start using it, like go figure it out. But how do we take it and really make it um from a learning perspective, like, what are the things that we can use? Like, what are the top 5 things that we can use our AI technology with, and then go and train our reps on it or our managers on it. So it's not that they're just like, oh, I'm going to rewrite an email on it, right? Like, that's not, you know what I mean? Like, there's so many things that we don't even know, like opportunity wise, that we can dig in with. That really that's kind of like what we're taking some time right now as far as like going through and learning our AI opportunities. Like, I don't know, would we be able to potentially role play through like using our AI technology? I don't even know. Like, I haven't even gotten there yet, but who knows? Maybe we would. So I think that's really where we are, right? Waste pharma technology, at least that newer technology of like, how can, and it's funny because when I talk to the reps, they're like, oh, I'm using this for AI. I'm like, oh, I didn't even think about that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, just those
Yes,
conversations,
yes.
it's like, wow, that's really cool. And like, I want to be able to share that with everybody. But also, do we not blow everybody's mind with it too? Like, do we have it kind of be like chunked learning from the perspective of like, this is working in the field. Like, if you start with these 3 things that you can kind of incorporate into your day to day, will that help you? Right.
No, absolutely. And I think that's, you hit on something so important there with AI in that it has been so explosive, right? Where
Mhm.
there's just so many tools, so many things. And I think one of the biggest things, or what has come up a lot and what I've talked with a lot of individuals about, is just how almost like creating community and a space to talk about it and how they're using it is going to be how we kind of navigate through some of the explosiveness of it all, where there is so much out there where it's like, well, how are you using this in your day to day? And once we hear like these real world use cases and it's like, oh, that is really cool. That will really help me. Maybe I'll adapt it a little bit to my day to day to do this. But
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love
We do have like one thing because we're, like I said, we're just starting to get kind of certified or badged or whatever you want to call it within Copilot, and we have a community that like, ooh, this is how I use Copilot today. I'm like, oh, that's really cool. Like, I'm gonna go try that. So like, at least there's like a platform to kind of start where, if you haven't ever thought of it, like, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and try and do that. So it's been good as far as being able to help share that knowledge for sure. But it's only on a small scale. Like, we need it to be larger as far as like being like, oh, that's cool, that worked, I want to try it, kind of thing. So
Absolutely. Andrea, to close on a positive note, what is the most important lesson that you've learned as a leader that you would pass on to someone just starting out on their journey?
So I I have had the opportunity to be able, like, I started in sales and I was a sales manager. And I think foundationally, when I started off working for within media, that we actually had a path to become a manager where you had to go into like coaching and development and training. And then you become a manager once you kind of like learned how to coach and develop people, because it's kind of helpful as a manager to do that. Then you become a manager, and from there, I was a sales manager. um and dating myself, like the internet came about, and like that was part of our solution. And so for whatever reason, it was something that I definitely connected with and I could teach people. And so then I became a trainer kind of out of that. Like, and then so I've been back and forth in my career as a sales manager, a very focused coach and developer, whether I'm with my sales reps or whether I'm with people within the learning and development team. That I think that the more often you can do different things within your career, that can give you a better foundation to what you ultimately do want to do. If you have the opportunity to do it, I would encourage you to do that all day long. So
I love that. That's great advice. Andrea, thank you so much for joining us on the NovoEd Talks podcast today. It has been an absolute pleasure having you here.
yeah, thank you so much. It was really nice to meet you. I appreciate it.
Awesome. And thank you to our listeners for tuning in once again to the NovoEd Talks podcast.